Event Freelancers, welcome to your new community, connecting you to your next project. Get connected. Sign up now. It's free.
So let's begin, everyone. Anna, tell me a little bit about your business, your entry point into the sector, and how harshly this has affected you and the business around you.
Well, I'm based here in Asia, as you know, and I'm a freelance producer. And as of January this year, because I'm in Hong Kong, I was one of the first to go down in terms of work. My last project was in Dubai. And I flew back to Dubai, and then I flew to Singapore to do a little bit of teaching. And by that time I got back from there at the end of January, it was done. Nothing was going. Hong Kong had completely shut down. And so we've really been in a stalling factor right now here in Asia, and the industry in terms of theatrical productions, either at the casinos over in Macau or the shows across the border in China, plus the shows in Dubai, are all down. And fortunately, at the moment, there's a couple of remounting projects going on right now, which is looking positive. As you may be aware, Asia has handled the coronavirus quite effectively in a way that they've locked it down really quick. That doesn't mean that everything's buzzing and great, but the virus is certainly contained. But Le Pearl over in Dubai just announced that they'll be opening at the end of July. Hong Kong Disney was open for a little bit, as you may know, but now it's shut again. So that's not so good. And I'm involved in remounting the House of Dancing Water in Macau to a determined date yet, but we're in the planning for that at the moment. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
And how quickly were these organizations able to make that transition from understanding what a lockdown meant to sending people home, dealing with artists, production? I mean, these are big organizations and big shows from what I've seen and from what I know of your work. So.
Honestly, none of it has really been, nobody was prepared for it. So nobody's really ready for that crisis management, and I think it's something that all companies should prepare for in the future, knowing that this could possibly happen again. And the problem now is, West End is closed till next year, probably Broadway's closed till next year, and there's no roadmap to return. And what I'm currently doing is writing never-ending schedules, right? So I'll write a schedule, and then that COVID timeline will move, and then I'll write another schedule, and then it's budget affected, and it's already difficult to remount a show buster, right? Especially one that's that expensive. Then to deal with all the COVID factors and the uncertainty of timing is just a challenge. And I'm sure, all of the companies on Broadway and West End and other theatrical entities are also dealing with that, as well as trying to implement COVID friendly procedures in terms of social distancing, seating capacities, protocols on wearing masks, et cetera, and that's going to change and be different from country to country and culture to culture. So particularly in Asian culture, we're a very compliant society here, so everybody's working around with a mask. It's socially unacceptable to be walking around without a mask in Hong Kong, and so I can imagine people complying in a theatrical sense here, not such of a big deal, but then you go to another culture and there's not such compliance. So I don't think from a global perspective that the way that people will deal with the reopenings will be similar. Do you know what I mean? I think they're going to have to be different approaches, and we have to learn from each other, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then find the new normal.
And how do you manage the skill sets? We work in an industry with unique talents, performers, artists, musicians, riggers. In your case, you have divers and people who work on shows underwater. What are they doing? How do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them engaged? Can you keep them at all? Because one would imagine they want to go back to their home countries as well. So.
Well, there's two types of people in this period. There's the ones that are watching a lot of Netflix, and there's the ones that are taking the time to grow positively and be motivated. And that can go in waves. Of course, it's very disheartening for a lot of people where the industry is their life to be cut off at the knees in this kind of situation. And for some, there's no governmental support, depending on what region in the world you're at, and so these can be quite devastating effects on their livelihood. And so there are some people who are fundamentally just trying to cover the basics, have rent and food and all of those things, and then there's some people that are in quite a comfortable position and then are using this time to take the webinars on my site, and there's lots of things that are being offered by the Stage Management Association in America, USITT. You see all of these technical companies offering free sound training, free lighting training, and really trying to boost the industry and the morale. But the reality is, I think it's just going to take some time to come back, and people are going to have to potentially find some other roles to do in this interim period. I know that there's one of the production manager friends of mine in Las Vegas is now running a massive operation in a warehouse delivering medical supplies around America, which is a noble side hustle in terms of this industry. There's other people that are, a friend of mine is doing a Step for Circus charity hike and encouraging people to donate to get circus professionals back to work. Other people are doing things like drive-in theatres and cinemas, and that's sort of popping up around the place right now, and some theatrical performances. So we'll see how that goes. And for those who are in the downtime, this is a mental health challenge, I think, for a lot of people. And I know that as far as I'm concerned, I'm trying to reach out and support and include people in my platform. I've recently been interviewing a lot of people for a podcast that I'm doing, and a lot of them keep saying the same thing, which is, oh, it's really nice to talk about work again. It's really nice to talk about work. And so, even just putting that out there and trying to stay focused is what I'm trying to contribute to the community right now.
Yeah.
And hopefully help out where I can.
I suppose it's a recognition in something you said earlier that, it is a business. Theatres have got to fill seats. There's got to be popcorn sold. There's got to be tickets sold, and somebody has to manage it from that perspective. But equally, I think one thing that we recognise is that it's also a community. It's a family of people that work very intensely together and create some amazing work. So it must be challenging, and maybe even more so when you're away from your home country, I suppose, in some ways. But tell me something. With 6 months down the line now, what are the trends that you're seeing? You've suggested that you're remaking a show, or that there's some changes to come, but what are the general trends that you see that might offer some chink of light to people in your industry, in your sector?
Well, I think from a financial perspective, the heavyweights of things like casinos and corporate companies that have a lot of money behind them that do fund and finance entertainment around the world will be one of the first parts of the industry that has some money behind them to remount shows, right? So that's the example of Macau, in the fact that it's a casino. They will have revenue coming in very quickly once the borders open because of the money that people spend at the tables, and that can inadvertently help bring the entertainment industry back in that part of the world. And then the second factor is, which I think is the hardest one, is smaller theatre companies, smaller arts institutions around the globe that have probably got cuts to their funding because of the current situation. So their return to the stage is going to be a lot smaller and a lot longer. I think they're going to have to put on smaller shows, and without a lot of high upfront costs when they're putting them on, so that they can recoup their money to some extent. And the trends really, there's no trend. We're blind, you know. We're trying to figure this out, and I try and see it as an opportunity to do things differently, and reconstruct perhaps old habits that weren't particularly good in the industry. I do have a fear, though, with such a wealth of unemployed qualified people that they could be taken advantage of when they come back to work, being offered lower salaries. I am concerned about that. And you know, you just general talk of what people say, we can offer less because they know everybody needs a job right now. In the event sector in this area, I'm still involved in a pitch over in the Middle East, and they're really going forward day to day with as if they're going to put it on, and then they're just going to decide on the date that it goes when things have opened up, and they'll go. So I do think in this part of the world there is some stuff going on. Unfortunately, with places like America and the UK, the coronavirus is still very prevalent and heavy and all-consuming society, and so it feels like a longer path back there. And I hope everybody starts wearing masks.
Well, there's a suggestion of a chink of light there, but thank you, Anna. Let me wish you, your company, and everybody in your sector, in the theatre sector, all the best. Challenging times for everyone, I think, as you rightfully said. But we have run out of time, and look forward to seeing you in Hong Kong one day soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Danny, tell me a little bit about your business and the television industry sector.
Hi, Ajay. So I set up Zigzag Productions in the last century, 20 years ago, November 1999. We've had 20 years of, you know, up and downs, but probably never had to experience anything quite like the pandemic. The pre-corona era, which now feels like a lifetime ago, we were starting the year really well, and then obviously the anchors were thrown down, and everything that we had in production was put on hold.
Yeah. And by the way, I've had a couple of letters thrown at me. There is now BC and AC, before COVID and after COVID,
Yeah.
which is beginning to ring true. But tell me, how harshly has it affected? I mean, there must have been a day when those phone calls came in and cancellations were in play.
Yeah, it all happened incredibly quickly, I think, for everybody. You know, just sort of crept up, and suddenly everything was put on hold. And we had to react very quickly and you know, send everybody home from the office, and all shoots were cancelled. And sadly, obviously being freelancers, weren't able to continue, and the majority of our staff were furloughed as a result of it. Having said that, we did manage to carry on, and we have managed to carry on working throughout, unlike many other industries. But that's predominantly been in terms of development, and we're also fortunate we've got a big back catalogue, so we've been trying to sell some of our historical programming.
And tell me something, help me understand the scale of the business, maybe not just your business, but the sector. How many people is this involving? How many freelancers are involved in just what you know about it?
Well, in our company, we probably have about 25 full-time staff members. But including freelancers, we're about 100 people. Yeah. And there are, I think, over 500 registered production companies in the TV sector. So you can probably take us as a sort of an average, as a medium-sized company. We're an independent company, so we're not part of a bigger group. So there's no safety net for us as an independent company. Having said that, I think the bigger you are, the harder you fall. So some of the so-called super indies, as they call them in our sector, probably have much bigger issues in terms of overheads and staffing than we do. We were fortunate, actually. Some of the broadcaster clients that we have continue to pay the freelancers salaries for a period of time, even after the pandemic hit. But unfortunately for the majority of those freelancers, there was no safety net.
And so we now, we're almost 6 months down the line. Certainly myself speaking in Hong Kong, we've been experiencing this for a little bit longer, but what do you start to see? Are there any trends forming? Are the commissioning editors requesting anything new? What do you see as any trend, short or long term?
I think initially people were trying to work out how they could make content in lockdown. That actually didn't last very long because I think most people were spending all their days on Zoom or other video apps, and they don't then want to watch programming that's shot in the same way.
Yeah.
Also, we've seen the advertising revenue fall off a cliff. And for television, other than the BBC, all the other broadcasters are commercial, and they've all seen the ad revenue drop. So budgets disappeared, and obviously that has a knock-on effect to programming. The other issue has been insurance. It's been a very big issue in the UK sector because no insurance company would insure you for coronavirus if there's a second wave, and no producer wants to be caught in the middle of production if there is a second wave.
Yeah.
In France, the French government have actually underwritten the production insurance, which has given the French an opportunity to go into production. But in the UK, despite the fact we're being encouraged to sort of get back into production, it's dangerous because of the insurance issues. Having said all of that, we actually went back into production on our first production post-lockdown on Friday, and that will sort of ramp up in the next coming weeks. And we are actually hoping that some people will start coming back to the office as of Monday.
Wow. And has there been any upturn in your need for writers, creatives? I mean, right now, I suppose, is a boom time for people thinking about the kind of content you want to create?
I think the market is obviously flooded with freelancers at the moment, and it's a very difficult time for freelancers.
Yeah.
The production that we restarted on Friday, we brought back all the freelancers who'd sort of been put on hold during this interim period. I think being a creative industry, there are opportunities, even in adversity there is opportunity. I think more so for sort of ideas creators. Yeah. So as ever, we're very receptive to third-party ideas, and that is a currency. So I think there are those opportunities. But I think in terms of paid freelance work, it's a bit of a bump at the moment.
Yeah, but a lot of time reading treatments, no doubt.
Yeah.
And so let's try and help our audience understand a 3 month, 6 month. Is there any chink of light? What do you see? What are you planning and forecasting for the next 6 months or further?
I think, it's hard to see as far as 6 months ahead, which is a crazy thing to say. But, I think right now, most TV producers, ourselves included, are trying to ramp back up and get into production as soon as possible. Insurance issues to one side. And the reason for that is the fear of a second wave and the fact that production and everything else will be shut down. So I think most producers are seeing a window of opportunity over the next 2 to 3 months to try and film as much as possible, get it in the can, and then if there was a second wave, at least there's material that can be edited and post-produced and delivered to clients. Because otherwise, all our screens are going to be blank and we're going to be seeing a lot of repeats.
Is it as good as that? There is simply not enough content out there to put out and broadcast.
I think there's always the potential for repeatability, and as I said, we're selling our back catalogue as a sort of fail-safe. But in terms of original content, especially scripted, so you're seeing very few dramas being filmed at the moment. We as a company specialise in what's called unscripted, so documentaries, entertainment, reality. There's more opportunities in unscripted because the filming process is easier to manage in terms of social distancing, etc., than drama.
So there's a suggestion there that there won't be many Christmas specials this year then, because I would imagine the time that you'd be going into production for some of those.
It depends what the shows are. I think we are seeing soap operas and other studio shows slowly returning under new social distancing rules. I think what's not going to happen are the big, ambitious, internationally shot productions, because right now it's very difficult to film abroad, let alone get abroad. So I think stuff that is controllable, containable, and realistic to produce in the next, I'd say, 3 months rather than 6 months. But there's stuff that can be delivered within 6 months, so by the end of the year, is the priority. Because I think right now most broadcasters they don't have gaps right now because they're eating up the stuff that's on the shelf. But come 2021, it's going to be void.
Danny, thank you. We have run out of time. There's so much more to talk about. I wish you, all of your team, and everybody in the television sector all the best. Stay safe and stay well.
Thanks, AJ.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let me welcome Gareth Ellis-Unwin. Gareth, tell me a little bit about your business, your entry point, the sector that you represent.
Okay, so Gareth Ellis-Unwin, as you mentioned, I own a production company in London called Bedlam Film Productions, which was set up in 2006, predominantly in the independent film space. We've enjoyed both ends of the spectrum. We had the shiny office in Soho for a few years with lots of staff, and then decided to take the business into the cloud and have been sort of pretty much remotely working for about the last 5 years. But alongside my activity as the CEO of Bedlam Film Productions, I also am the head of film and animation at Screen Skills, which is the UK charity that is being set up to enable those that want to enter the screen industry or indeed progress in the screen industries. And obviously with everything that's been going on, it's been an incredibly busy time with Screen Skills over the last few months.
And talk to me a little bit about just how harsh this year has been. When did lockdown actually come to you? What were the decisions that had to be made, and just how did it really affect everybody around you?
Well, in the UK, I mean, basically March 23rd, everything shut down, with the exception of, say, news and some of the shiny floor TV shows. Pretty much all scripted production shut in the UK. We have seen the green shoots of return. So some of the continuing dramas like Emmerdale, like EastEnders are back in and shooting. A couple of the more significant studio pictures have restarted, with Jurassic going 2 weeks ago, Mission Impossible whirring up last week. So we're starting to see some recovery, but it was total. And I think, at the time in the independent film space where we had an eye to the disruptors and changing distribution models and changing financing models, when coronavirus hit, it was just this massive leveler. I mean, no one was beyond its reach. And I think that was quite a remarkable moment in time. I know that it's had a massive impact on the freelance community. And if we broadly say in the screen industries, I think the last ONA, the last Office of National Statistics put the entire workforce at about 215,000, and it was recognised that 50% of that was freelance. So that's a community that's been incredibly impacted over the course of the last sort of 4 or 5 months. A lot of the people found themselves in what's been referred in the press as in the gaps. So whilst there was an impressive amount of support available through British government for lots of varieties of different types of people, different types of businesses, different types of loan structures, very much the freelance community was slightly overlooked in that assessment. And you had a ridiculous situation where someone who maybe had earned £50,000 and a pound fell out of the remit of support. There was an upper ceiling that was put on support. So the freelance community is incredibly bruised by what's happened over the last few months. I hope that we're now starting to see a better return to work in terms of more productions whirring up, and that will see those jobs becoming available again after this period of hiatus. But this, the other side of that is that we've been incredibly busy with Screen Skills in supporting that community. So we've run something like in excess of 400 live events. We've been very close to the discussions with government about the safe return to production. In fact, I sat on 2 of the recovery groups and had a hand in writing the British Film Commission guidance on a safe return to production, something I was very proud to have played a part in as part of Screen Skills and as part of the British Film Commission activity there. And we've also launched this COVID-19 Basic Awareness in Production safety course, which is free to use. You can find it on the Screen Skills website. It produces a certificate so you can evidence to your future employers that you've got this basic awareness training, that you've successfully completed the course. So I think we've kept the community fairly engaged through this period. In fact, a sound recordist mate of mine was chatting over the weekend, and he felt it's been like going back to film school for 4 months. You know, he's taken every course that he can do. He's done every bit of remote learning that he can do. But yeah, it's been a ride.
I can certainly, say from the events industry, it is a community. It is a family of people that, and certainly my short experience with the film industry is that it is like that traveling circus. So I would imagine that making those phone calls and releasing those teams and releasing those crews is difficult also. I mean, how do you do that in the preparation of a film shoot that has hundreds of people over a long period of time? Was that easy? Well,
I mean, I can only talk to the independent space where I've got more experience. The studio system is very, very different. They carry their own insurance. They carry their own way of engaging crew and staff. They work unbonded. They carry their own completion bonds. So it's a very, very different model in the studio space. So any comments I make is very much tightly focused on the freelance community. I mean, deliberately, shows are set up to be agile. Most independent films in the UK will be set up through a special purpose vehicle. The company will be set up specifically for that project, although it might come under the banner of a bigger production company. And a lot of people are used to working on late notice engagement, both engagement bringing people onto shows and also at the point of dismissal. I mean, I had a 13-year career as an AD that was all freelance, before I became a company owner. And I experienced some shows where literally on the Friday night you got told that the money had run out and that you didn't have to come in on the Monday. It's an incredibly fever world of independent production. So it's tough, and you do recognise that you're delivering bad news at a bad time to people that are dependent on that work. So I hope where that has happened, employers have taken the right and appropriate responsibility and duty of care over those that they've had to unfortunately stand down, and just do the right thing when we start to get going again. Offer those positions back to the people that have been put on hiatus during this time. I think one hope I have coming out of this is that we've all seen leadership in extremis now, and I think where we quite enjoyed being that sort of slightly cottage industry, it's the arts, it's not quite as sort of hard-nosed as proper business, as it were. We've really recognised that strong and good leadership is critical in our industry, and we've just got to treat people right now. We've got to recognise that there might be anxieties around coming back to work. We've got to recognise that people have been living a very different life for the last 4 or 5 months. I think as employers and as leaders, we've really got to sort of put our shoulder to the work now.
Yeah, no, I think you're quite right, Gareth. Gareth, this year's taught everybody that it is an industry that we work in. Freelancers need to recognise that there is a professional context to it. It's not I came into this as a vocation in life, but actually it's so much more than a vocation. With professional skills and the professionalisation with the way all of our creative industries have gone, this year has probably taught people just either how lonely you are and detached from it, or how connected and integrated you are into it. And certainly, I'm really
pleased that you've raised the question of isolation and that feeling of loneliness, because I'm sure that many have had an incredibly tough time over the last few months, and our colleagues at the Film and Television Charity really sort of stepped up to the mark in offering helpline support, financial support for those that are in dire need. And I would really encourage anyone that is struggling with this from a sort of mental health perspective to either reach out to the Film and TV charity line or colleagues and peers in the industries, you don't have to suffer in silence, either through this period of hiatus or as we go back in. Again, I highlight the fact that some people will be very, very anxious about returning to work. You know, I took my first train to go and visit the in-laws 3 weeks ago, and it felt odd. Being on a train carriage with a bunch of people in masks, with some people not in masks, you know, so a lot of this period of change as we come back out the other side of lockdown is going to cause anxiety, and I really, really do hope people know that there are places and ways in which they can reach out for support.
No, I think Gareth, we that's a great note to end on, because reach out to anybody and everybody, talk to one another, and certainly there are systems in place. People are there to help as well. So we have run out of time ourselves, though.
Oh, what a pity. I mean, I was going to finish on was just that people please understand that this has been a period of adjustment. We do hopefully see the other side of things. It's been a shitty roller coaster, to tell you the truth, for the last 4 or 5 months. But I think, you know, we are starting to see the green shoots emerge of recovery. And, you know, please do reach out if there's no need to suffer in silence.
No, thank you. Well, let me wish you, your family, all of your colleagues and everybody in the film industry the best, safe and speedy return. Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. Stay safe, AJ.
Thank you. Take care.
Event freelancers, welcome to your new community, connecting you to your next project. Get connected. Sign up now. It's free.